Town Hall number 19. Wow.
Wow.
I cannot believe we're at 19.
Time flies.
Yeah, it really has moved, hasn't it, Mike?
Indeed.
It's pretty wild. As everyone knows, Jonathan's already jumped into it. Let's go ahead and move to the next slide. There's Mike and I. Mike on the right. Just in case you were confused, we're like twins.
A little bit shorter haircut. There.
Yeah, it's true. Also, I've just given up and gone with hats. But
I might do
Mike,
that too.
we're your hosts. Let's move on to the next one. So here are kind of welcome. This handsome young man is Brian Lay, who'll be talking to us today. So we'll talk about that in just a bit. CEO and founder of Alpha Rank and a longtime friend of Big and myself. Let's move on to the next one. So as usual, a quick introduction. We're going to go over a few things. If you want to speak, if you have a topic, the purpose of this town hall is to share information with other people. And I'm proud to say that we've been doing that. We've made a lot of strides, and we're able to, hey, Melissa, if you could mute everyone but me when you get a chance. I think there's a mute all button, and then you can just unmute me. So I'll wait for a second, or I'll stay on it. But anyway, so, the whole point of this is to share information. And I know that we've been able to do that, which is really cool. We've heard stories about people getting information from this and using it for other things. We've even made connections. I know Jim Yates got some help from Unitas a week ago. So just really good stuff going on. We're real thankful for that. Because of Zoom bombing, we want everyone to send a chat in, and you might already see people doing that. If you don't send a chat in, I'm speaking to you, chorus note taker, then we will boot you because we don't want to be Zoom bombed or anything weird. If you feel compelled to dig deeper, so let's say that someone like Jonathan or Tom or one of the other many people we have on here, Andrew, is saying something that you believe you'd like to know more about, you're more than welcome to hit them up on the chat directly and get their information and talk to them, or email me, or we'll find a way to connect you. But if you need more information, whole point of this is collaboration. If there's information that you think is for a broader audience, then, for example, if you've got something that's a fix, but maybe you don't want to talk, you can just post it to the everyone chat. And we'll make sure we grab that and get it out the door. If there's a sense that something is worthy of a longer discussion, that will go to Mr. Mike Lawson for his longer format CU broadcast show. And then finally, these town halls will be recorded and published. So if there's something you don't want out there in the ether, either refrain from saying it, or you can go ahead and talk, but just let us know, and we will edit that out of the platform. So and we're actually starting to do that now. For instance, we talk a lot about fraud. Unitas brought up a couple weeks ago that, hey, we were kind of given, if a fraudster watched these town halls, they would get some insight into how we're battling it. So that was a great point, and we're going to be more cognizant of that in the future and do more editing. So we're keeping an eye on that. But so we still encourage you to just be open and talk. And if it is that you'd like something removed, just let us know. Or we're working on a Zoom filter that makes you look like you're in the witness protection program and just kind of darkens you and changes your voice. That's another option. Without that, let's move forward. I know everybody's seen this, but just in case, here's where the chat information is. A lot of people don't realize that in Zoom, especially if you have it minimized, that the little box at the bottom, and now it has a lot more stuff. It's got reactions and all kinds of things now. Turns out Zoom is pretty hot property, but that window or that little bar in the bottom, the dock will disappear and come back. So if you're wondering how to pop the chat out, that's one option. If you've got it full screen, you can always go up to view options, and you can choose that to change it from full screen. So hopefully you haven't had a problem finding the chat, but just to let you know, that's where it's at. Hey, Cody's here. I didn't realize that was Cody. Hey, Cody. I thought Cody was also an AI, so that's pretty cool. All right, so let's move on to the next slide. So this week, I wanted to talk a little bit about PPP loan forgiveness, particularly the full forgiveness for self-employed borrowers. And one of the things that we talked about some time ago was many of us made these PPP loans. Tom, I believe you guys did a lot of these. Is that correct? Oh, you're on mute. You're still on mute. Can we unmute Tom, Melissa?
There we go.
Oh, sorry.
We didn't make any loans, but we have a lot of members that did receive them from other institutions.
Okay.
So we are working with them on how to manage the forgiveness piece. So this will be good information for us.
Yeah, so that was a big piece of it. I know that Vibrant Credit Union did a lot of them. Jonathan, did you guys do any SBA loans? I thought you did.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We did. We've done about I think it's close to 100 million.
Wow, that's a big dent. So, so just for everybody that's listening, Big got a PPP loan. We were very fortunate and very happy to get it because, you know, a lot of people that were looking at our 5 product at the time, you know, when things hit, they said, hey, we gotta pull the brakes. We gotta pull the, you know, the chain to stop the train here for a little bit because we're not sure what we're going to do, and it really affected our budget. So we were able to get that. We worked with a great organization that helped us do that. But in the meantime, we've tried to be very cognizant of how we spend that money and the rules. And the problem is that the rules can be a little ambiguous / vague. And Brian, feel free to unmute here because I know you know a lot about this. So at the end of the day, we're starting to get towards this. The forgiveness was extended 8 weeks. So now you can go a little further with it. The other thing that was reduced the amount you needed to spend on payroll to obtain forgiveness from 75% to 60%, which was really good because, you know, part of the challenge was that even if you wanted to keep people on payroll, it was difficult because some of them have families, they didn't want to come back, given you know, given the circumstance of what they were doing. So that was a big change. But even if you didn't get to 60%, you could still obtain partial forgiveness, which was nice. It changed the date for the replacement of the full-time equivalent and to restore salaries to December 31st, which is a big deal. So all of a sudden, you know, we were heading towards this big deadline, and all these rules came out. But the thing that's always been, you know, interesting is, and we've wondered this at Big too, how will you explain this to everybody? How will you follow these rules? How will I, you know, Jonathan, if I took a loan from you, how will I satisfy what you need? Because my understanding of this, and Brian, you can chime in here. So, you know, Jonathan, it's a great loan for Hudson to make because it's basically 100% backed by the government, right? So you're safe no matter what. However, you do have to follow the rules of when submitting this back to get your portion of it back, and also on behalf of the member. But how do you clarify all this? Like, for example, you know, what do you do with contractors versus what do you do? You know, there was a lot of those sort of ambiguous things. You know, how do you define those things? So maybe, Jonathan, if you guys talk a little bit about like what you guys are thinking now that you've seen this, then maybe Brian, you can chime in with some of the other things. I know you've been really close to this.
Yeah. So with us, you know, to be perfectly honest, I think there's still, you know, even on the lender side, there's a lot of confusion about what are our obligations in trying to manage the forgiveness aspect of these. And, you know, one of the things we're trying to see what will happen is if this thought of any loan under $150,000 will be forgiven, you know, outright without question, that could simplify our lives a lot, and that's still tied up in Congress at this point. So we're waiting to see what happens there. We do have our the platform that we use to originate the PPP loans will also can handle the forgiveness documentation, and we use a platform called NewGen to do that. So you know, we can handle the logistics of getting all of that information back from our P3 loan recipients. But I think, you know, even for us, we're still a little up in the air in terms of exactly what we are going to be required to do with the recipients of these loans from us versus, you know, what is not required. And, you know, the rules around that. And I think that's absolutely affecting us. The ambiguity right now and the sort of day-to-day changing regulatory environment with these is making this a much harder process to deal with for our business services team. And you know, it's funny. I was actually talking to our business services assistant vice president about this today, and you know, her response was as well that, you know, the rules change every day, so I can't really tell you for sure what exactly we're going to have to do yet. And so I think that's the unfortunate part about this is it was great to get that money to everybody, but now comes the labor of trying to figure out, you know, what do they owe and what don't they owe, and we don't have a real clear answer for that yet.
So just to clarify, and before you get going, Brian, I can see you're moving there, but so just to clarify, the organization that you use for the loans is collecting the information, but not necessarily processing it. So you
so we use the front end, and really the platform is developed by a company called NewGen, and then they interface. They have API integrations with the Small Business Administration, origination APIs, as well as several others that we use to like Laser Pro and other documentation service providers, which is one of the reasons why we went with them. It was actually kind of a difficult choice because, you know, there were a lot of providers throwing out, oh yeah, we've got a PPP solution, and you know, but it turns out most of them didn't integrate with anything. So great, you got the application, but then you still had to manually deal with all the data in the application to get it to the SBA or somebody else to originate. So while it took us a little longer to come to market with the solution from NewGen, the integration was there from the get-go, and that's why we went that route.
So, but even though it integrates to the SBA, it's still going to be human reviewed. To
Absolutely,
make sure
absolutely.
Okay. So Jim Yates, Jim just posted in our Everyone that there's a new forgiveness form that was literally just released, I believe, just a little while ago. Jim, did you want to? Yeah, there it is. I think she has the document here. But Jim, did you want to expand on that?
Easy.
No, we were just sent it by the SBA rep here in Wyoming. She's sent out both of them along with the new guidance. Our rep here has been great to help with just about everything, really.
Oh, great. Well, it looks like so Brian, what anything that's called EZ is always it's a little suspect to me, but you want to talk to this just a little bit?
Yeah, nothing about this PPP forgiveness process has been easy. It's kind of like being in the third quarter, but nobody knows the rules of the game yet. We have a joke we tell that you get final guidance, and then you get final guidance, and then you get final guidance. That's a PPP joke. Anybody can borrow it. So yeah, it's been a really great exercise in agile software development because things are constantly changing when pushing this out. So kind of like John, we got exposed to this problem when the middle of the night, a very nice 25-year-old by the name of Jake called my COO up, who's on the phone. You'll hear from him in a second, Carlo, and said, "Carlo, I can't find your tax ID number." And Carlo's like, "Click the PDF. It's digital." And then I had to sign that document packet 3 separate times. And at the end of it, I was kind of giving Carlo funny looks. I was like, "What did you get us into?" And so from there, we just started focusing on forgiveness because the forgiveness part is actually way hairier because with the PPP Flexibility Act, most of the incentive for the borrower to submit the documents this year has been wiped. You can't charge interest, you can't charge fees, and you're in this limbo state until they submit the application, which is a real trick. And we can talk maybe at the end of some creative ideas to create an arbitrary date. But right now, I mean, this could stretch well into next year. So how we got into this is our main business is something called customer journey mapping. So we benchmark all the different LOS providers against each other to figure out what works and what doesn't and do optimization. So we took that approach and we said, what's the most beautiful way we can collect this information? Because you don't have a lot of sticks here, ultimately. And if the form, even if it exists, but if it's too clunky and it doesn't generate enough dopamine to get people through it, this is going to last for a long time. But Carlo, do you want to say anything, given that you're running this project for us? And Carlo, in his last role, was the VP of wholesale data at MasterCard and basically runs AlphaRank for me. Carlo?
Yeah, thank you, Brian. I wanted to share with the folks on the town hall what we learned about PPP forgiveness. Obviously, new rules of the game based on the Flexibility Act that came out about 10 days ago. Finally, the SBA caught up with all of that. So the good news is that more of your borrowers, if not all of your borrowers, will qualify for 100% forgiveness. So that's great. Better chance to get these loans off of your balance sheet. Certainly nobody wants to go into 2021 with these kinds of loans on their balance sheet. And I think we all went through what's the three positives: longer period for forgiveness, up to 40% non-paycheck, and lots of leeway in rehiring both dates and exemptions. However, one of the things that this act also did is frankly just reduced dramatically the incentives for early filing. So now the borrower has an official deadline of 10 months from the end of the cover period to file for forgiveness. So if it's a 24-week cover period that they choose, this could stretch well into September of next year. And unless they forget completely to file for forgiveness, there's really no penalty for filing next year.
Hey, Carlo,
There are no, yeah.
Carlo, quick question. So the extension to December 31st, 2020, listed on your note there, doesn't that just mean that, like, you really, what would be the value of filing before then? That's one I'm struggling with, because
To the borrower?
yeah, well, yeah, because to your, it affects your forgiveness in terms of the FTEs that you bring back. So I almost feel like, why would anybody do it before December 31st, 2020?
I think it's only psychological, just to make sure that you got that thing out the way, that the funds were forgiven, and then you can turn 100% your focus to surviving in this new world that we're all in.
So if you had your FTEs all clear and you caught back up, then definitely that would be in your best interest. Okay. But if you don't, then yeah, that December 31st becomes sort of a de facto date in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, look, John, there's going to be there's two types of people out there. There's the people who keep really good records and will want to get through forgiveness as soon as possible, because that's the way they run their business. And AlphaRank is one of those. We're a PPP borrower ourselves, and as soon as we're at the 100% forgiveness level, you better believe it, we're going to be in there filing for forgiveness. So we want this thing off of our books, and we want to be able to focus on helping credit unions grow and get back to our regular business. But the reality is, a lot of these small businesses don't keep great records. They are running around trying to figure out how to survive. And they got the money, they'll spend the money, and dealing with these are folks who are late in filing their taxes, where the penalties are pretty severe. So you got to make it easy for them, and that's I think the key to the whole thing for credit unions, because folks like Jonathan here, I mean, you're basically on a fixed income. On a small dollar loan, you're going to get 5% of that loan as your fee, and then you're not going to get anything else, frankly. Because even if you collect interest, you're like way into next year before you collect any of that. So the question is, how do you manage your costs and how do you manage your process to stay within that fixed level of income that has been given to you in the program? And the smaller the loan gets, the smaller that pool is, and really the less time you have to do an extensive review and back and forth. So how do I get that borrower to give me a clean application from the start, so I can quickly approve it, be done in 15 minutes, because that's really all the money I've got to spend on this. And I'd love to hear what Jonathan is thinking about the back end process and managing that expense.
Or anyone else who's also going through. We want to encourage. I always love to have Jonathan talk, but anyone else that also has a question.
So full disclosure, this side of the house is not my my forte by any means. So it's mostly from what I've gleaned from conversations with our commercial folks and understanding that. But I do think that a lot of our loans that we made were on the smaller end. And so, in terms of, aggregate dollar amount. So I do think a lot of what we're hoping for, honestly, is that for those smaller loans, there isn't so much of a, we have to do all of this, a large amount of due diligence, and they're just forgiven outright without needing, a lot of that work. It's interesting. I'm on the board of a nonprofit here, and they're in, mental health, and they got a $2 million loan, SBA loan, and so they're doing extensive record keeping for what they're doing, and the conversations we've had to have about HR decisions and all of that, just to make sure we're not violating any of the terms of forgiveness on these, is just mind-boggling. And so, I can only imagine, Carl, from what you're saying, where you have a small business that isn't particularly well organized, it is going to take a significant amount of effort to try and get them to the point where they can be forgiven. And I think, honestly, that is one of our concerns of our business services team here. And they're really still trying to work through it, because I don't think we necessarily have a straight answer for exactly how we're going to handle that yet.
So Carlo, you had said that, I want to make sure I understand this. So he's on a fixed income. So on a $100 million portfolio, he's basically got $5 million to manage it.
Or less.
Right.
Yeah,
Or less.
as the loan value goes up, the percentage fee goes down.
Okay, but for round numbers, we'll call it 5 million. And so for every bit of manual work and all the effort he has to take to get these things through, it eats into that 5 million. That's kind of what that's your supposition there, right?
Yeah. That's
And the more
that's basically the math. I mean,
right.
The lenders got paid up front, more or less, and now their obligation or their duties for that 5% to 1% they got paid up front are actually expanding. So now they have to keep these documents for 6 years that the people submit. Forgiveness stretches way into next year potentially, and who knows what else is going to come down the pike. Well, yeah. Oh, by the way, and the government's I think asked, would you like to convert these loans from 2 years to 5 years? I don't know how many people are going to step up to that, but there's more there.
So real quick, and I know you are limited in time. I want to make sure we get through, but I'd also, Hudson Valley is an enormous credit union. I'll just throw it back to Jim because he spoke earlier. Jim, did you, make any PPP loans for your group? That would be Jim Yates.
We did 37 loans, about 600,000. So not pretty. I mean, it's quite a bit for us.
I was going to say, but you're a smaller shop. I mean, the scale is, you look at the scale of it. So that was my, I try to keep perspective all the way through where, Jonathan can work with some of these things, but Jim's liability may actually be higher because it's a smaller group and it's as much work as as what in terms of the same amount kind of work and the amount. So okay.
And now we have this new Form EZ. The 3508 got republished this morning, as Jim pointed out. It's gone on a massive diet. It's down from 11 pages to 5. There is a 3508 easy instruction. The instruction for the easy itself is 3 pages, which does not bode well for what's coming. They haven't published a form yet, but I'm sure it'll be forthcoming. The SBA right now is very much monkeying with its website in real time. The interesting news is that there's 3 simple questions. And if you qualify under any one of those 3 criteria, like for example, you're self-employed, then you go straight to this easy form. So we think it's gonna be pretty interesting and helpful to both borrowers and lenders. So, what we've done is we've created a forgiveness portal that credit unions that, don't have access to an integrated solution can stand up pretty quickly. We can turn them on in 48 hours. It's all cloud hosted, all based on AWS. And it's really what we think of as TurboTax for PPP. Just walk the borrower through a bunch of simple questions. I'm actually delighted looking at the attendee list. There's 2 credit unions for a fact on this call that have signed up to use our system. So I won't reveal their identities, but thank you for your business, and we'll look forward to working with you in this new world of PPP forgiveness with the EZ program.
Yeah,
I'll
you're-
reveal
you're-
myself. How's that? I'm also.
Wait. Andrew bought it. Never mind. I was going to cancel this.
All right, but this is you know, the idea is to make it very simple. Just make it brain dead. You log in, co-branded with a lender.
Well, hang on
Hi,
a
please
second. So this is me. I'm logging in as a person that got a loan from Andrew's credit union.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so you just hit the blue button, you get started. You sign in with Google or Apple ID. Everybody has one of these. Keep it simple. Just very little information, nothing scary, all stuff that you know. Then you connect. You could put in all your expenditures, or we could do it the QuickBooks way. I don't put in Alpharex expenditures into QuickBooks. I connect to our bank accounts and get our information from our bank accounts. So then
Is this Plaid in the background?
it's Plaid
Yeah.
in the background, just like QuickBooks.
Nice.
And then we start the application. We have a few questions. We have to redo all these questions based on this easy guidance, but now we'll ask you up front, 1, 2, or 3. And the minute you say yes, you go into the easy process as opposed to the full-blown 3508. This is the one hairy part of the process, and documenting payroll. There's 2 ways to do it. If you have a payroll provider like ADP, QuickBooks, or Gusto, they give you a report, download the report, box 1, box 2, box 3, box 4, box 5, put it in there, drag and drop, done. If you don't have a payroll provider that gives a report, then you download this template right here, drop in your information in the template, upload it, drag and drop, we do all the calculations for you. And then the expenses side is just like, it's really just like QuickBooks or an expense reporting program. We walk you step by step through all the allowable expenses, you check the box, you basically trying to build up this total here, get as close to 100%. And that's really just a psychological trick to keep the borrower motivated. Now that the borrower is close to 100%, give me your documentation. This is what's required under the act. You drag and drop them here. If the file name is wrong or doesn't match, or you upload a picture of your dog, we'll say, hey, this is not the right file. Give me the right documentation. You review. We check it for you based on what's required. If it's not required, we'll give you a monetary incentive to come back and put in the right document. And then here's your final analysis. Here's your application form. Send it to the lender. And then it goes to the lender. Lender, like Andrew's team, at his end, if he's just one person at the credit union that logs into the Alpharex system, comes in. These are the application queue. You can look at.
Carl, I don't see it. I don't see it yet. And one of the things that we recommend is that since it may drag on for a while, assign 1 or maybe 2 people just to process, 10 forgiveness, 20 forgiveness applications per day, rather than spread it out across your lenders, because that would be distracting, like what happened when getting the loans out the door.
So
That's right.
couple quick questions before you go, Carlo. So first one is this is cloud-based. So
Yep, cloud-based.
So when you update it, so how quickly will you be able to how quickly are you going to be able to turn around these changes that just came out? And when you do, will that be all, everybody all at once will have those changes?
Yeah, everybody gets those changes all at once. It's a single multi-tenant platform.
Nice.
And our goal is to get it done by the end of next week. Now we just unpack what's in this form and really to go through the analysis.
And hope it doesn't change before
it might. It might. I mean, to be
no,
honest,
it's a good point, but
I mean, change is inevitable, especially when Congress, has already told us they're going to, pass some more legislation on PPP forgiveness. So
yeah, well, I think there'll be more of these loans, and so kind of coming back around to Jonathan. So Jonathan, this feels like it's very different than just asking for a bunch of documents. Is that kind of what you're seeing here?
Yeah, and so, it's interesting. I'm comparing as I look at these screens. I'm comparing it, what we have in our new gen system and how that was set up, and it was, I think there was also a sense on our side where, we had people looking for larger dollar amount loans that were had a lot more complexity in terms of the documentation to even apply for them. So this is really, I really like this in terms of its simplicity and ease of use. And, I think that's a huge piece of this. I think my biggest worry about the forgiveness part of this is that as we do need to get some of this documentation back, it's going to be very complex to make sure that we gather all of the right information. What we integrate with we integrate with we're integrating with the sort of back end processing systems, but NewGen doesn't go out and pull in history or transactions or anything like that from a financial institution. We're still relying on the business, the owner or whomever, to actually maintain that documentation for us. So from that standpoint, this is much more user friendly in terms of that experience.
Yeah. So Carlo,
Carlo did disappear, but I'll try to step in. Is very big.
No worries.
See it at
So
12:30.
no, I appreciate that. So that's really kind of what I was looking at. One of the goals of this town hall is to find solutions that people can help. I've known Brian a long time, and he begs every week to get on here, and I said no.
True.
No, we're not going to be
Flowers,
talking about
cards, whiskey.
weirdo stuff. But if you got something COVID related, maybe call me. And but this does feel like this would be valuable, because I likened it to Kevin and I were talking today about some work we did some time ago for what was the name of that church, Kevin, that was next to Westcom?
It was Calvary.
Calvary, yeah. So we had created these accounts for the Calvary Church, and it was really difficult at the end of it because we had to do a lot of work for the giving and taxes and things like that that were far more difficult than put to Kevin and I when they told us to do it.
Yeah.
Is that good way to put it, Kevin?
That was very good.
Yeah, it was kind of like they said, do this. It's only this, this, and this. And we went, yeah, duh, we could do that. But we didn't know we had created like a forever job for the two of us, literally, for a long time, because every one of those people. So how does this spin into that sort of model where I feel like there are also further implications of this, where not only you have to deal with the forgiveness and the loan, but next tax season, you're going to probably have some, you're probably also going to have some obligations back to that business as well, right?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I felt strongly about the tax side to go buy ppp.tax to grab some of that domain traffic. But yeah, I mean, I think this is, anytime
you own ppp.tax?
I do. So if anybody wants it, call me after. But no, I went out and I grabbed, SBA 503, 5308. I get them spun up. But yeah, a bunch of domains. Because we think there's also going to be a lot of direct traffic floating around. It's something that we didn't materialize. I don't think we're going to chase very hard. But as borrowers look for this information, there actually might be a good customer acquisition opportunity for credit unions. So, for example, if you are buying, ads against, people looking for the new PPP forms, and you're able to then offer them your small business offering, starting in 2 weeks, there's going to be 4 million fish swimming up a very narrow stream. And, the average small business account, at least to someone like Alindio, is worth $80. So, there's a real
Can you go back and can you qualify that about the 4 million fish?
So about 4 million businesses took out PPP loans. I actually think it's probably closer to 5 million, but right now. And so you're going to have 4 million chief financial people, and then all of their support staff. All of a sudden, when people start looking at this, I mean, actually, one thing I'll do is, I don't know if the spike is still there, but if you go to Google Analytics, and I'm going to pull it up and then share my screen. If you go to Google Analytics and then you search, the 3508, so give me just a second while I put this up. What you'll notice is that there's been some insane traffic spikes. So for us, when we look at rerouting traffic for—
I own 3508easy.tax, right?
Do you? That's great.
I bought it just now. I'll sell it to you though. It's all good.
Yeah. Or domain trading is a whole different thing. So let me go to, actually I'm searched, it's not
Well,
Google
why you
Analytics,
do
it's
that?
Google
Why you do that?
Trends.
I want to pitch an idea here so Tom, you're able to see from your system a whole bunch of people got PPP loans, right? Even though you didn't give them, you can see that they were there.
Right.
So with that in mind, if they're doing business through your organization, then I wonder if something like this is still useful to help them get everything together, even if they're not with that bank. Is it something where you could offer this as a service, even though you didn't house the PPP loan?
Absolutely, yeah. Because I want to make sure that this most of our borrowers, English is a second language.
Sure.
So they, and they're really small. The loans that they did receive were, I got to think, 90% were less than $10,000. But it's relative, so that was a significant amount of money to them.
Absolutely.
But I don't want this forgivable loan to turn into a loan. I want to help them avoid that debt because they have a debt with me. I don't need them
Right.
compounding that with some other debt where they could easily avoid that if they just had the right tool to do it. So yeah, I'm watching this, and that's exactly what I'm thinking. Is this is the type of tool that I could bring to them and say, here's a way you can manage the
Well-
process easily to get this forgiveness done.
And let me go a step further. How, you're not super far from Hudson. I'm using this as an example. And Hudson would probably like to have those PPP loans. So how do you create something where, one, you use the data analytics, and I know Gary's writing this down, so we'll get to Gary in a minute here, but where you get to these data analytics to say, okay, here are all the people that got PPP loans. I'll provide them this service, which, by the way, Brian, he just mentioned something important, bilingual, so we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
But then the follow-up to that is, could you then, as Brian is saying, somehow work something to put that business in the Crayon space, if it isn't already there?
Mm-hmm.
We'd have to look at how to connect that, but sure.
Yeah, you could offer it and basically use it as a way to capture that interest, because we think, and this is, time will tell, but we ultimately think that it'll be the best borrower experience that won. So a lot of the existing providers, and Nugent is one of them, they built systems that are very lender friendly because that's who is buying the software. But as this is stretched out and all of a sudden, it's really the impetus is how the heck do you get borrowers to submit these documents? And the easiest way to do it's like Uber, Netflix, or like Grubhub. It's lower the barrier to entry. So you'll notice we didn't just digitize the 3508. We changed the way we were filling it to try to maximize dopamine, which is what we find works for online account opening and LOS systems. Is
Okay, you're
make
gonna
it
have to
really
qualify
simple.
for all that for us. Not all of us are dopamine freaks, probably just me.
Sure,
So-
dopamine, neurotransmitter, but it's the anticipation of reward. And so a lot of things get done or don't get done if you have enough dopamine to do it. It's like the chase or flight response. So that's why basically an example is, say you have an online account opening system and someone clicks the button and you show 50 fields at once, right? And it includes your social security number and everything. Yeah, that looks like a lot of work. But if you take that and you break it up into little chunks, right? Little chunk, next page, little chunk, and then you make it bigger and bigger over time, you're more likely to finish it. So I don't know if anybody's gone to like a deli and they give you a sandwich card. And then they're like, the sandwich card, it's not as popular now as digitized. So you'd get a sandwich card and then they would like click 3 of them out immediately. So why would they do that? Well, you're closer to the end. So they're increasing dopamine, so you're more likely to keep buying sandwiches. So they give you a little bit of free in the beginning. Same thing, I'm sure a bunch of people's kids here play, Fortnite or video games. That's why they make you create an avatar in the beginning. Is because if you create an avatar, it was proven like years ago with Second Life. If you make someone create an avatar, even before they create a username and password, they're more likely to go through the process because they already have something that they associate or that they put work into. And so you can use the same tricks in your LOS and online account opening systems is what we find. And so that's what we've started doing, John, is we built this by benchmarking the industry and figuring out who has the best performing flow. And then we distribute those best practices to all of our clients.
So with that in mind, so if I want to come back to Tom's idea. So if Tom said, hey, I didn't make any of these PPP loans, but I want to provide this product to them, and I'm willing to take a couple of people and have them look over. So would the format be that Tom would have a link to it on his website, or he'd send it to the people who had the PPP loans, and then they would go through the process? Does it? And one question I had was, does the product log into SBA.gov to get the terms of the loan? Is that even necessary given?
It does not. And in fact, nobody even knows if they're going to use E-Tran for submitting it. So it's this big open question. And I think one of the reasons why we're hitting way above our weight range as far as the size of a company and the amount of institutions we're helping do this is that everybody's on the same page here. So FIS, Fiserv, Nugent, and then, a smaller site, Alpha Rank. the rules are coming out so fast. The advantage of being a big organization has really dropped to zero.
Right. Yeah,
And
because
it's
you're not as
who
agile.
can be the most agile. Exactly.
So-
And you can
so-
see here, Form 3508, right? Boom. So if you're buying these keywords or routing this traffic, there could be a sizable amount of small businesses that you could acquire, particularly if your charter allows for a larger scope.
Yeah, definitely in Colorado, apparently. That's because of all the marijuana business. But coming back, which you know about, Brian.
I do.
Yeah, he's in California. But coming back, so if Tom did this, then the end result would be a list of documentation that they could then take to their PPP lender for 100% forgiveness or whatever.
Yeah. And depending on, when we work directly with someone like Andrew, obviously we're not sharing that data. We're not even, doing additional analysis. It's what is between the borrower and the lender. But conceivably, we thought about doing a direct to borrower play where, maybe the borrower pays $5 to use a better way to package their documents.
I'd pay the $5 just to not have to go through my bank account and figure out what's forgivable.
Yeah, exactly. We don't know what the demand is for that, but we're staying open-minded. And then potentially, if we threw up a direct-to-borrower site, we could go buy a bunch of these keywords and then sell, any of the credit unions here those leads.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
Depending on how you did it, you could also get expense data. Again, the terms would have to be different than what we're doing for our direct customers, but one could imagine that if you have a Plaid connection, you can see which businesses are recovering from a revenue standpoint and which ones aren't. So originally we took that idea and kind of shopped it around, but most people are so focused it didn't get legs. But if anyone's interested,
well, right now people are they're just trying to get.
Yeah.
You're 4 steps ahead, and they still haven't got on the freeway. It's not their fault. It's just they're not running. They're running pretty hard for a lot of other things. They still got to figure out how to open up a branch. Just real quick, Brian, if you don't mind, let me ask Andrew. So Andrew, your implementation of this is what? Is it just, hey, are you sending it directly to them, or what are you doing, or how you get it out there? I know Carlos shows it wasn't branded, but
we're still working on that right now because of course everything hasn't been released, right?
Right.
But basically it's just a matter with us is just getting the documents, so they can put that in. So I think that we're just going to Dropbox or something like that to get them the documents. That's what I was actually thinking, Brian, like, what if we wanted to basically provide this product to other people who didn't have a loan with us? They would have to provide the loan documents through a portal or some way to you, right? Because honestly, we're not going to make money on this. The only reason why we did this in the first place is just for the community. So we make it easier for everyone else there too.
Yeah, they would. That would be the additional part. But as is, we could just split off a separate direct to people that maybe didn't take it with you, and you could also offer it to them. So
is this a branded experience when you do it, Andrew?
It would be branded with
for us.
Andrews.
Okay. Yeah. So it's soup to nuts. So Carlos said it could be done in 8 minutes and 5.
I think he said 48 hours.
And it costs $10, right? That's what he said. I thought
we have to wait for the DNS to propagate. I don't know. I just like saying
that does take 24 hours. But what's the are you pricing per each one of these, or how are you putting that out there? Fluctuation.
Generally. So pricing, depending on volume, ranges from $45 to $60 per application. There's a caveat there, which we wanted to be really mindful of, is that if an institution, and there's no setup fee, there's no per seat fee. So that makes us, it's a more premium experience. Obviously, we're not the cheapest one out there, but it's in range of other people. The caveat I would give is also, a lot of institutions gave out a lot of small dollar amount PPP loans, right? $1,000 loans, $5,000 loans, and obviously the pricing doesn't work for those. So I also have given us a mandate that we've set aside a portion of the volume that we're automating, basically as like close to freebies, or like, let's have a conversation about what you can reasonably pay. And so that's one way that we've actually been able to help other organizations or community institutions that maybe gave out a lot, but low dollar amount. And I think it's really important to be mindful of, because nobody should be punished for doing the right thing. And we felt pretty strongly about that.
No, and I know that's how you operate. And I appreciate that, because that's exactly kind of what I would do too. I think that, someone did a $5,000 loan, they can't pay a $45 or $60.
No.
But there are plenty of people where the value proposition of that also is important. So coming back around, there's no host connectivity in this, but I could see where there would be some value, because what you're having to do is have them log in via Apple or Google. So after that, do they get alpha rank emails every day from Brian? Like, hi, this is Brian from my community. Me and my 12 people want to talk.
Not from Alpha Rank. So the brand we're using is forgivesmb.com, because the borrower doesn't need to know who Alpha Rank is, and it's not really relevant. But yes, so they're getting communications both through the portal is the main, but also to the authenticated email. Now, if the borrower starts asking questions that are really credit union specific, we would just say, hey, talk to someone on Andrew's team. But it allows for someone who's in the credit union to basically have a one-to-many communication where they can manage all of those back and forth actually in the portal.
So once you log in, you can come back to it.
Of course. Yeah.
So that could be valuable, because as we just discussed, this probably has a long tail, right? We think there's tax implications down the road. We think next year we'll be looking into this. So that would be something where you continue to update it, and it could be used as a way to get more information to them, to do some more things. Is that really
potentially? I mean, we're being very candid, as Andrew knows, saying what we can and can't do, because it's the most important thing is to make sure you're delivering the promised functionality on time. But potentially, who knows what's going to happen, right? So I think John knows this, but my dad's actually an epidemiologist. My mom's a school health nurse. I'm a huge hypochondriac who's been telling people for years, no finger foods at conferences.
He's a little weird. At the age of 5, we had to put him in a bubble.
Totally. But there's a joke I just posted on LinkedIn. It's kind of a joke. It's like you can't have a second wave if the first wave never ends. And so a lot of us forget, why the heck were we getting flu shots? But if we were getting flu shots because of the 1918 flu pandemic that killed 30 million people in India alone. And so if you look at what happened there were 3 distinct spikes. Now, it seems like the U.S. has come up with a very creative solution to not have that, which is don't let it go down. But there will likely be future lockdowns. I think some of you probably saw the news. 15 people went to a bar in Florida, all got coronavirus. That's very.
They were mostly
candid.
big employees. Yeah.
Yeah.
We couldn't stop them.
China's locked down again, right?
Yeah.
So look,
Beijing, for sure.
and it was the Western strain that got back into China. Full circle, right? That's karma. And so this is gonna be a thing for a really long time. Will there be another tranche of PPP? That's kind of a political question at this point, but something. So I think we're looking at, maybe extending out your community development capabilities might be a good play for people here, because the government, there's a lot of stuff going on right now. Another joke is, the first 12 weeks of quarantine was like, let's learn how to make banana bread and cook sourdough and garden. And now we're in like the riot stage. So, it is uncertain what's going to evolve, but the government is probably going to continue doing some sort of programs, and that's something to look forward to. Also, as a side note, John, I have brought one crazy idea related to accelerating PPP forgiveness document submission here. And so if we have time at the end, I'm happy to propose it and have it be completely shot down if it's terrible. This is a very rough concept, but I know
we're close. Give it to me, man. What is it? Let's hear it.
Yeah, so one of the issues, like Carla mentioned, there's not a whole lot of sticks for the industry to get these PPP documents submitted early, but it is in the lender's best interest if it could, so it doesn't drag on forever. And so the thought I had was, well, if you don't have any sticks, you need to produce a bigger carrot. And so one carrot that we've done is make it easy and beautiful, but that'll only get us so far, and a lot of people still probably will procrastinate. The other carrot I thought of is a financial incentive and an artificial date. So theoretically, if there was critical mass in the industry, what you could do is say, hey, if you submit your forgiveness documents by, I'm making an arbitrary date up here, but let's say like, August 20th, you're entered into a sweepstakes where your business could win an additional $1 million worth of funding. And so I've actually contracted with a sweepstakes company. It's the same one that FIS uses. They've done banking stuff before. And so I have their contract in hand. So theoretically, if everybody that had a PPP loan or a large portion of the industry put, $2, $3 in per loan, you could create one big lump sum, which would increase dopamine. So a bigger prize, just like X prize, is more likely to motivate. And then any participant, the lender could say, hey, if you submit by this date, there's this bonus. And, for someone really sophisticated, and I would say Alpha Rank, we're not going to be swayed by someone promising us a sweepstake, but we're also going to be the people submitting early. A lot of the long tail, maybe the less sophisticated business owners, that could be the difference between submitting now and submitting next year.
So we run big on an abacus that I keep in the other room. And so I tried sending the abacus to the bank, but I took a picture of it. No, so I'd throw that to Tom and Jonathan and Andrew, my usuals. Anybody else that wants to chime in? Does that, are you, Tom, obviously there isn't a huge motivation for you other than to make sure these people can repay you for your loans. So it seems like there'd be some value there. Jonathan, that could be, go ahead.
It doesn't, from as not being the lender, because you're trying to get it off the liability of the originating lender. So
yeah,
from my perspective, I would drive them to those to help with that, but it's not, I'm on the other side of the equation.
Yeah. And then
But
Jonathan and Andrew, I'd be curious to
putting
think.
something like that in to help them, because it does seem like an awesome service. I'll tell you what, I would remember whoever had that portal.
Exactly. And I think that's part of it is, for us, we do promotions and, giveaways and all that kind of stuff. Generally, it's interesting. We generally do it on the other side, the account acquisition side, but we don't generally do it on the loan, whether it's forgiveness or repayment or anything like that. When in reality, that's what's making us the money. So it's an interest. I don't know that it certainly would be something I'd be interested to throw by my marketing people and go, hey guys, have we ever thought about something like this? This could be interesting. This kind of turns, our concept of how we do promotions around and actually gets us the money that's making us income more so than, our 1 penny check, savings share.
Right. Yeah. What's a checking account worth?
Right. So it actually,
particularly if they're draining it of liquidity.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Totally. Andrew?
So just go ahead, Tom.
What's that? Savings account, save to win and all. This is the lending side of that, where you're aggregating the prize pool and saying, we'll award it to one person or two people.
Yeah.
It does. I like the
idea. Or it could be a spread of prizes, but it's more of like, does the industry care enough? And I think that's the question, is ultimately it'll come down to a financial equation of what percentage, either will it cost you to have this drag on, or an increase in forgiveness if you actually get people to submit the docs. Andrew, what do you think about this? So Carlos said, don't share it with our current clients. It's distracting.
Hey, you're not allowed to ask people what they think. I'm the charge here. You can't just be, all right, fine.
All right, sorry.
You get him on the phone.
I like the gamification of it. And, people don't know math very well, so they think they might win. So I think that's a great little incentive there, because we were thinking about that too. How do we get, especially if this extends out, we're not going to make money on this, but how do we get them to at least fill out the loan, get it done, and give them the information so they can get done? And, so that I think is a good idea. Anything like that you can to gamify it, as Michael said, you want to be able to do that. So otherwise people don't do things on their own. And right now you kind of wonder, everyone's in a different state of mind. They got anxiety and stress, people have cognitive, there's just, make it fun, But I'm sure that they're,
Andrew, what you were just saying though, you do have skin in the game, just like Tom. Like, I wonder if you did a Gary Coates kind of lookup, how many of those PPP lenders also have other debts with you? And if it is that they don't take care of that, does it not put those debts in more jeopardy?
Well, so we did not do SBA loans prior to this, right? So we started doing SBA loans. So we did SBA loans for people that, they were not even members of the credit union at that time. They joined the credit union because we were doing the SBA loans.
Okay.
So all of it is an opportunity,
Gotcha.
So yeah, and out of those, about 30% of our loans were people that joined afterwards. We wanted to prioritize our own membership, but then, there was some other requests that came through from some community, some really like cornerstone community businesses that we want to make sure that we're still around. So
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I think Brian's point is dead on, but I think the challenge with this is out of sight, out of mind. And so I think it's one of these things that could sneak up on you too. And all of a sudden, let's say the administration changes in November and rules change drastically or whatever. And the more of these you have taken care of and out of the way, I think it's one of these things that could sneak up on you and suddenly be a problem, that you wind up spending all that $5 million that you got as incentive to make these loans. And so I think that's a concern. We're getting close to time. This was a really good presentation. Just real quick before you go, I just want to make sure I understand this. So if you had next gen, new gen, I don't know who these other vendors are, but if you had that product, this doesn't interfere with that. It would be on top of it. It'd be something that you could use. You could sort of use it in place of it, and your people could just handle that with that group, right?
Yeah, I had not thought of that before, typically, but theoretically.
I guess that question wasn't for you, Brian. It was for Jonathan. But fine, if you really feel like you want to answer it. No, I'm just kidding.
I was going to say we could. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing that would prohibit us from using a solution like Brian and his crew have developed. In addition to New Gen, they would play well enough together in the same sandbox, I think.
This is why Brian and I were like one of the highest rated AXFI little teams, because I'm not afraid just to give him crap. I hate his young, good-looking face, and don't you just want to punch him, Tom? I know you do. It's okay. You should, and that'll be on the video for everybody to watch. He knows
where are these ratings at?
You can find them. You were the one. You wrote a note. I really find him attractive, and then you bought his stuff. I don't know, but Mike, any final thoughts here? It seems like this is something maybe you want to bring into your area as well, or at least grab some cuts from.
Yeah, I think that's obviously based on this discussion. It's a growing topic in the credit union industry, and I'm hearing more and more of that in the industry trades. And we're going to be covering more of that on CU Broadcast as well. The forgiveness part of it, how kind of confusing it is, how controversial it is. Because I've even read stories where companies have given money back because they don't want to be liable for that money, or they just outright didn't even apply for the PPP loans because of how confusing the forgiveness was. So I think so. If you can, anytime you can simplify something like this, oh my gosh, that just encourages people to get in there and to take it to another level, to gamify it, create that competition, the dopamine, all that good stuff. That's just the cherry on top, I think. So yeah.
No, I knew what Brian contacted me several times. I knew what he was doing, and I knew this was huge. I had already seen his previous product, which was brilliant as well. If you haven't seen that, that's a whole nother discussion. But well, we're getting close to time here. So what we'll do is this: if you would like to know more about this, you can hit chat with Brian right there. You can email me, Brian. They can email you directly. We will get you in touch if you're interested in it. And Brian, I can't thank you enough for you and Carlos sharing some of this knowledge. Would love to get do you think your dad would get on one of these with us?
I could ask.
Ask him, see if he would. I'd like to have an epidemiologist. I got a lot of questions for an epidemiologist. I tried to get Fauci on, but he just wouldn't come. But
a little busy.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I got stuff to do, or president wants to talk, whatever. But your dad would be my second choice. So what's his name? Stephen Lay?
David Lay.
David Lay, that's it. So yeah, I knew your dad was an epidemiologist. So yeah, maybe we'll be able to get him on too. But
actually.
Yeah.
It would be.
Don't ask him about his opinions on people texting and driving.
That's, in fact, that town hall, you're only allowed on if you're driving. That's the only way everybody's got to be in the car. Well, listen, I really appreciate that. I see some folks on here. I just want to call out Jeff Dent for Correlation, great group. And I'm sure Jeff sees the value in these sorts of things. Welcome Chorus Note Taker. I think that's my Indian name. And it's been another edition of Digital Town Hall. So thank you all for joining. Really appreciate it. Brian, thank you for your time. We'll get this published. And again, if you want to talk to Brian, email me, email Brian. You can find AlphaRank, alpharank.io or com.
.io.
.io, I thought. Yeah, you can also go to ppp.tax apparently, and soon you'll be able to go to 3508 easy. That's where I want to put it. That's also my rap name, Easy. All right. That's it. I'm out. 508 EZ. See ya.
Hasta luego.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.